give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LMDtv Finance.
The key to quality and efficiency. Be a jewel. Professionalism is the jewel in the corporate crown.
Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society in association with 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv and another episode of the forum. Tonight, we are zooming in on cash flow management in times of crisis. And with us, we have the Director of Finance of Richardson Holdings, Portia Jayamaha. It's very nice to have you on the show, Portia.
Pleasure is mine, Ruwandi. Thank you very much.
To start off our discussion, what is your assessment of the impact of the crisis that we've been having in the past, I think, the last 3 years? What is your assessment on the impact of this on the local business arena as of large?
So, Ruwandi, let me start saying compared to rock bottom downfall we had last year, maybe around March 2022, with worst economic crisis, we see crisis is now gradually easing off. And we are not fully out of the wood, but now what is remaining is the after effect of crisis in this recovery period. So when looking at the crisis on businesses, most critical impact I see now is the impact coming from the to the disposable income. So there are various reasons for reduction in disposable income. It can be from unemployment. We saw most of the industries such as tourism, construction, and also retail. They were more of a standstill. And also certain companies due to contraction of businesses and also maybe relooking at the employment cost. People or the employees started earning lower. And also we saw certain sudden increases in the personal taxes. So, and finally also the high cost of living thanks to inflation. So with all of that, there was a contraction in demand. When disposable income is low, naturally, it is affecting the demand. So it's a blow to the company and it has a circular effect. Next biggest thing I would see is from high lending rates. Even though interest rates started dropping gradually recently, compared to what we have enjoyed, I think now AWPLR is around 20% compared to 9%, which we were enjoying 1.5 years ago. So all of that will take time, and local businesses will take time to survive and move into new projects. With this limited and also unreasonable drop in, with a more reasonable drop in interest rates, they might be able to go into new projects. So thirdly, I think among other factors, there's still import coming from exchange rate fluctuations and also need more stability in rupees for businesses to plan. I believe import restrictions will continue and we need it to stabilize the rupee or the reserves, but I believe it will take some time on easing the restrictions. So all of that will depend on, will have an impact to the certain industries. And finally, there can be continuous pressure on profitability of the businesses due to low demand as well as rising cost. So recently, I think we saw how energy cost has increased. And also from supply chain side, we see still the cost challenges will be there. And getting deliveries on time is going to be an issue, and that will have an impact on the local business. More than everything, also, I think skill shortage is going to have a major impact on our businesses. There were recent migration of most of our employment base, as well as they keep on moving to better opportunities. So all of that together with, I think, finally most important party in this business is the customer. Their expectations are high. They want better products at a quicker time and also at a better prices. So it's natural in a normal circumstances, but businesses in a crisis, they will struggle with the economy to meet this customer expectation.
And while local businesses are struggling and somehow trying to maintain operations and hopefully profitability, in your experience and from what you have seen in the last year, what has worked for businesses and what hasn't worked for businesses?
So, in a crisis, what matters mostly is the survival and pass through the wave. Most of the businesses didn't have a plan of increasing profits. So when we started, we were not looking at more of finding profits or ways of achieving profits, but we were looking at initially on how can we survive. So if we have survived, it was considered more like achievement. And if we have made profit, it was more like a luck. So when looking at what has worked, I think we can look at frequency of decision making. In a normal circumstances, we were looking at our prices, maybe monthly or quarterly. But during this time, we were actually every week was monitoring the impact to the prices because supply cost work kept on changing every day, every week. So we had to increase the frequency of decision making, and also passing the cost just simply to the customer was an easy decision. But you don't have to meet frequently. It's a matter of passing, but we didn't want to do that because we are again increasing the pressure to the consumer. So we were looking at ways of managing and reducing the burden to the customer. We were looking at what we can absorb, and we analyze what we have to pass through. So it's more of a frequency. Secondly, we were looking at supply chain management. There were import restrictions, and because of that we had to frequently look at what is happening on supply chain side. There we had to look at how can we do our imports, necessary imports to run the businesses, as well as most companies including us, we looked at how can we localize certain products. So I was talking to a colleague in food industry. So they were looking at actually localizing their certain imported items. For example, like cheese, the country actually totally was depending on imported cheese, but they have started working with local suppliers too. They have gone into their factories and supported them to get a better products. So this is something I think, I believe, which has worked for us. And mostly, I think with COVID's support also, where we were looking at our cost management. So cost management also, I think most companies are good at in cost management. It's not cost reduction, it's more of a management. But then we had to also move into cost reduction also. We looked at what is good to have and also what is necessary. And sometimes we had to push back good to have and actually prioritize only what is bare necessity to keep the production cost at a lower value. So all of that and has helped. I think I would say these things have worked for us, and I think most companies must have done it. And I believe I'm happy of those activities that has given results to us. Looking at what has not worked, I think biggest failure we all had is the ability to retain talent. As a country and as organizations, we lost many talent for overseas migration, and also employees started moving into different companies for better opportunities. Obviously, companies couldn't meet the increase in cost through the salary adjustments because it's again affecting the sustainability of the business. But certain companies had to select certain critical staff on adjustments, but still it was not adequate to retain the much needed labor as well as skilled staff. So all of that, I think, is what I see has not worked very well. And I believe this will have a continuous pressure going forward also.
Portia, coming into the main topic of our discussion today, cash flow management. Before we talk of the practical scenario, if we look at the technical scenario, according to the textbooks, what is the importance of cash flow management for businesses during a crisis?
It's a good question. Since we are still in the part of the crisis, I think that is still valid for the current businesses. So in a crisis where the survival is the key, effective cash flow management will help the companies to be stable and also avoid insolvencies and increase the survival. So it is like the bloodstream of a business. Good flow will keep the business alive. Business don't appreciate when it is done because it's not visible. But when it is not done, it is so visible, then only you realize how important the cash flow management is for a business. So having said all of that, good cash flow management will ensure that business has sufficient liquidity to cover its day-to-day operation. So such as your salaries, paying your employees on time, paying your taxes on time, your rents, utilities, all of that. So when these expenses are not managed well, business will collapse. So that is one most critical part of good cash flow management. Secondly, your supply relationship. So when you want to maintain a positive relationship with your suppliers or your vendors, this is a very critical activity or a need in a crisis. Timely payment will demonstrate the reliability of the company and increase the trustworthiness. So this will also help ensure the continuity of the supply chain and also enjoy the credit received from these suppliers. Thirdly, I would see when it comes to borrowing and financing through external finance organizations, lenders and investors always will make an assessment on the cash flow situation of a company. And sound cash flow management will ensure your creditworthiness is enhanced and increase your chances of securing finance at better terms or favorable terms. So I believe finding all of that, and also finally, because we are talking about a crisis bring many opportunities. So when you want to seize opportunities and if you have a very good cash flow or cash flow management, that gives the opportunity to actually seize certain opportunities. It can be acquiring a distressed asset or acquiring a company or acquiring talents or new technologies. So all of that possibilities or windows will be open if you really manage your cash flow well.
Thank you, Portia. You gave us the ideal situation. Now, if you look at the reality when it comes to Sri Lankan businesses today in this crisis, how effective are the cash flow management strategies that businesses are employing?
So when talking about corporates, Sri Lankan corporate sector has invested or actually consists of many professionals from various professional bodies. And Sri Lankan professionals are recognized locally as well as globally as one of the best. These professional bodies keep updating, and their bodies, these professional bodies and their organizations or institutes actually keep on updating the technical knowledge of the professionals. So with all of that, these professionals have contributed immensely to the corporate sector. They have brought robust cash flow management systems and also good management practices and finance discipline to these organizations. So those organizations who have invested in on these professionals actually would have vouched for this, and they would have survived and practiced better, I believe.
Looking also at the SME sector, because I think about more than 70% of local businesses fall into that category. How is their management of cash during this time?
So before talking about their cash management, if you look at SMEs, you need to look at their like a positive side. They are more of entrepreneurs. They have a unique ability to create, and they are very agile, and they are also risk takers. What is lacking mostly on them is their management arm. They have limited resources and also lack expertise in certain crucial areas. It can be on financial management or technology or their marketing resources or their regulatory compliance arm. So all of that is a more of a restriction. And when you lack capable resources, they will be facing challenges to survive. Some might have faced management challenges than business challenges during this time. So this can restrict their ability to compete effectively in the adapt to the market changes. Secondly, when you look at their cash flow management, they have a restriction on access to finance because of their limited collateral or poor or lack of credit history and their poor presentation. When you don't have enough resources or professionals to support them on presenting their business case or forecast to the financial institutes, they might face certain gaps. So all of that, they will have concerns of raising the much needed finance. So they will face challenges in that area. And when you look at your day-to-day operation, they also face your customers are paying you later than expected, but you have to meet your own finance obligation. Being maybe a small institute, your bargaining power or negotiation skills might be lower. So all of that has affected negatively on SMEs, and they had to seek support. I think they have been receiving certain supports from different organizations, but I believe they would have faced much difficulties due to these reasons.
It's time to take a short break. When we return, we'll resume our conversation around cash flow management.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
You're mobile, and so are we.
Gets me going.
Grab the Lite 87 app at the Apple App Store or Google Play now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Lite 87.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking to the Director of Finance of Richardson Holdings, Portia Jayamaha. Portia, moving into my next question. In one of your previous answers, or I think in two of your previous answers, you emphasize the fact that in a crisis, survival is basically everyone's main objective. Does this mean that innovation is going to be hindered, or can companies somehow balance these two aspects? What do you think?
So look at this in two ways. One is in short term. During a crisis, at the initial stage of crisis, you are looking at more of a survival. So it's very difficult to coexist the innovation and cash flow management. But in mid to long term, when you are stabilizing, it's a necessity of coexistence. You need to innovate, and also you need to ensure you manage your cash flows. If you don't invest or innovate businesses onto new businesses or into new products or services, competitors will pass you and you'll be wiped out. So it's more of a necessity. But I have to say, you can't do innovation if you don't have enough cash. So innovation cannot be done without cash flow. So it's essential to strike a balance between allocating resources and for innovation and also maintaining healthy cash. Most critical step on evaluation, I would see on prioritizing projects. Projects need to be prioritized where you need to pick high impact projects that is in alignment with the company's strategic objectives. And also companies overall look at how can you do incremental innovation rather than radical innovation. So small incremental improvements can actually improve the innovation of organizations can fund these projects with your regular budgets. So I think that is a one way of looking at how can you innovate with your existing business. Finally, when you look at funding options, I think you can look at in different ways. I see we can look at in three different ways of funding innovation. One is if you have built up an excess reserve, how can you support innovation because your pressure on projects will be little lower if you have a excess fund in the business. Secondly, you need to find within your business certain cash cows. That too will take your burden away, where you should be able to have a continuous flow of income or cash flows to the business while you are tied up with certain projects. Finally, I would like to see you anyway might have to go on an external funding. You need to pick at the correct timing of the funding, correct cost of capital, and also favorable terms. If you can get into that, I think companies can easily, strategically move into innovation. Finally, I believe you need to look at your ROIs, payback. You have to keep, anyway, companies look at ROI and payback before you move into certain projects. But we need to ensure there is a proper project management and also taking certain decisions then and there without till the end of the project. Sometimes decisions can be hard, but still, I believe you need to take certain calls to ensure you take right decision and manage the cash flows as well as innovation in the organization.
Definitely not going to be a easy journey, but hopefully many companies, yes, will do it. Thank you, Portia. Portia, looking into the future, what are your predictions for the next 6 months, for the second half of the year? And what are the challenges that you see?
It's very difficult to predict daily. There are shocks, I think, we are facing in the country. But I think overall, I see we will have certain challenges. Corporates will still face certain challenges. By being certain industry might face more based on your industry and your local and global market condition. Your challenges might vary. But what is most important now, I believe, is your ability to predict the demand and how well and how fast we can recover the consumers, your disposable income. How can we increase in the foreseeable future? These are and also certain changes in the dollar. Dollar is keep on fluctuating. We have to keep on monitoring and managing. And there is expectation, I think. We all expect it will stabilize. We saw dollar is appreciating in recent past. And we believe with the tourism sector season is, I think by November, we will get into the season. And also we see foreign remittances keep on coming. So with all of that, we believe, and I believe dollar will have certain stability. And as a challenge, I see we will still have the challenges in skilled labor and workforce challenges. I think will be there. And it might increase because we still see continuous migration. So corporate will have to manage certain skill lacks through automation or process engineering. And finally, I think competed when things are moving and we see positive changes, competitors are getting ready. They are planning. So all the organizations, also all the businesses also have to look at with the easing of cost of capital, moving into certain projects they have stopped. So organizations has to be ready on their innovation, their new activities. So they will be competitive and ready in the market.
Thanks, Portia. And while we're looking at maneuvering our way through the challenges, what are your recommendations to companies, especially groups of companies, when it comes to managing cash flow?
I think it's important to look the cash flow as a group rather than looking at more of a SBU level. If you do that, I think overall companies should be able to craft more of a group survival strategy rather than individually struggling within companies. So all the projects, if you look at as a group, all the projects you can actually look at and prioritize and pick what is better, what is giving better returns. And because funds are limited, we need to actually prioritize and make a selection. And looking at interest rate disparity now, lending rate versus saving rates. Now, if a company in a group has a excess fund, rather than saving, it might be better to lend to an internal company. We know we have to be conscious of transparent pricing, arm's length transactions. So if it is already not done, it's good to create a group treasury in a company where you manage or move cash between companies and actually better manage. Finally, you should be able to save your interest cost, what is going out of your system. So I think that is more crucial part of managing as a group. And then if you manage also as a group, you should be able to go to financial institutions better. You're stronger. You can negotiate better rates, better terms. So I think with all of that, I think it's always good to look at your business activities as a group.
We're almost at the end of our conversation, but before we let you go, any final words you have to share with our audience today, businesses and individuals alike?
Yeah. So I believe as a nation, we can rebuild Sri Lanka, and each one of us has a role to play. And we need to educate our societies and be responsible citizens. And as corporates, we need to innovate. We need to find solutions and also provide employment, and also always try to be better. So if we do that, I think we will have a better Sri Lanka. That is our corporate commitment. And I wish we can meet at a better circumstances.
We've been talking to the Director of Finance of Richardson Holdings, Portia Jayamaha. It was very nice having you on the show, Portia. Thank you so much for sharing your insightful views with us.
Thank you, Ruwandi.
And thank you so much for all our viewers who joined us today. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.